Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cosmic Weather for April 2022. I'm so excited that you're here. And if you are new here, please leave a comment. Let me know you're here. Say hello. Okay. So the first thing that I want to say off the bat is that we are not dealing with the same monster in April. April is different. April is going to be very contrasting compared to March. March was very heavy-handed in teaching you how to take a chill pill. Okay? So if you were with me in March, you know that the word that was coming up predominantly was the word float. Floating to your destination. If a problem is presenting itself, float. Allow things to float to you. Allow yourself to relax. So there was a very intense dose of chill out, relax, breathe. Everything's going to be okay. So maybe you were facing things that really allowed you to anchor that in, right? Were you dealing with the little fires that were popping up all over the place and it had to bring you back down to your center? Or were you just allowing things to come in, allowing the ships to come in? So most people were in one of those two camps, or maybe a little bit of both. For me, it was kind of a mixed bag between both of those two things. April is going to stretch you. And if you do April in a way that's really grounded, in a way that is clear-minded, April is going to be absolutely phenomenal for you. So I'm excited to dive into this. But before we get started, I have another free masterclass coming up in mid-April. So if you want to join me live for that, we're going in depth into the quantum field, energetics, frequencies. It's going to be high-level energetic stuff. So if that interests you, and in my opinion, this is the topic that makes me shine the most, I definitely recommend that you sign up for my newsletter. I will send you the sign up page when it becomes available. And I also send you a newsletter every Sunday. So all the goods will be in the Sunday newsletter. Okay? So that's number one. And you'll also get replays and reminders and all that good stuff. So that's number one. Number two is Apex is starting again in May. Now, because it starts on May 1st, this is one of those programs that there's no wiggle room on the start date. So because it is a highly intensive, energetic program and you're doing 61 days with me in this deep, intensive, I call it the Olympian training for your energetic and emotional bodies, because that's really what it is. Apex will catapult you into another reality. I'm not joking. The last time I did Apex, on the heels of Apex, I got a house, got guardianship of my sister, doubled my highest record income that I had in 2021, the first month of 2022, I doubled that. Saw all of this movement in my romantic relationship, all sorts of things. Apex does not mess around. So if you want rapid launching yourself into something completely extraordinary, Apex is the way to go. It is my most intensive program. You get a lot of me. You talk to me a lot. It's very, very, very intense in all of the right ways. So just so you know as well, there is a consumption fast for 6 weeks in that program. So we completely wipe the slate clean and we start filling your life with all sorts of meaningful, satisfying, and supportive things to start reconstructing your energy. So we're really building you into an energetic beast, like creation at a new level that you haven't experienced. That is what I can say. And one more thing that I will mention about this is I have had clients go through this, and Apex actually becomes the standard that they continually want to shift into. Or like that Apex thing that happens, that's what I want to get into again. And I can say the same thing for myself. The standard that I hold for myself now is Apex. Apex is the bar for me now, that I'm constantly like, if I ever fall out of line, Apex, that original protocol that I did the first time, is what I'm trying to match. So there are a lot of moving parts. I'm not going to unpack all of it here, but I am going to include the link in the description box, just so you know. So we start May 1st. It's going to be very exciting. I can't wait to see you inside, and applications are open for that. So if you are interested, if you want something that is going to absolutely rock your world, get in there. There's limited seats, so go for it. Okay, now let's go ahead and dive into the month of April. The thing that I keep hearing in meditation, when I'm in the shower, when all of these things are dropping in just for you, I'm hearing a couple things. So the first one being, go big or go home. April is the month that you want to make moves, you want to invest, you want to take aligned risks. Notice the word aligned, right? Not misaligned risks. That's not going to serve you, but really taking aligned risks, taking big leaps, big jumps that feel really good to you, and even pushing yourself, right? So pushing yourself towards the things that you want. But I'm going to talk about the nuances of what I mean when I'm saying push yourself, because I know that confuses a lot of people. So I'm going to unpack that. The second piece of this that is coming through is April is going to stretch you. It is going to stretch you. So in April, there isn't a whole lot of gray area. There's not a whole lot of middle ground for you to work with. This is, you aim at what you want, you go big, you play full out, you go all out, or complacency. Those are kind of the two modes that you'll find in April. You're playing full out, you're going big or going home, or you're just complacent. And for a lot of people, when you're not in expansion mode, it kind of feels like death, because the natural evolution that we're all going through has a certain current that we have to stay synced up with. So we have to flow with that current. We want that natural energy staying in motion process to continually unfold. We want to keep pace with that. And when we don't, it just feels crappy. There's no other way to say it. It just does not feel good. And you can imagine, like, what would feel better? Is it the class 4 rapids? Or is it stagnant water filled with mosquitoes and funk and, that green slime that grows on the rocks? Like, really, when you're thinking about motion or stagnation, what is truly going to feel better? And those are the two different tones that I'm seeing in April. Okay. Now, class 4 rapids, you might not be jumping into that right away, but it is going to just suck you in the same breath. I'm also getting a lot of you are going to have lots of opportunities coming in April that are going to present this question. What do you want? Do you want the goods? Do you want the big stuff? Do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? Or do you want complacency? Do you want stagnation? Because that is the choice, this or that, fast or slow, hot or cold, right? Like, there's just this very clear tonal distinction in the options that you have in April. Do or don't do. Do this or do that. Like, it's just going to be very clear, very stark. Shit or get off the pot is kind of the energy of April. And the way that this is going to work for you is it is going to stretch you. So the way that you want to handle April, in my opinion, from what I've seen, is you want to go first. You want to go first because if you don't go first, the things that are around you are going to push you. And in my experience, that's not nearly as pleasant as you jumping first. It is so much better and it feels a lot safer in your body when you're looking at something and you're saying, I'm going to take this risk, or I'm going to make this jump, or I'm going to do this thing, than someone coming from behind and shoving you unexpectedly. So the best thing that you can do for yourself is give yourself permission to start playing full out and let everything else come in around you and support that. But continual contraction is going to be really uncomfortable in the month of April. So if you're withholding from yourself and you're continually operating from contraction, I'm not going to do this because contraction, I'm not going to blah, blah, blah because fear, I'm not going to do this because no. Whatever the uncomfortable, fear-based, scarcity-based emotion or story or program might be, those contractions are going to be more uncomfortable than usual. Okay. So it's just keep an eye on that and understand that you jumping first is going to be much more comfortable. It's going to make a much more pleasant ride. And you are also going to feel way more in control, because the reality is in your heart of hearts, in your core, you want to be jumping. You want to make it to the next lily pad. You want these things. There's always stuff that we want. And it doesn't matter what area of life you're focusing on, you want to be making those jumps. And so when you collapse, you're still going to get shoved over to that lily pad, whether you like it or not, because in the core of who you are, that is ultimately where you're led. But once again, it's, do you want comfort or do you want chaos? And sometimes it might feel like there's a little bit of both in that. But when you are operating from more of your focused agency, it is going to feel like a smoother evolution than if you're getting your whole world shaken up and ultimately taking the same leap anyway. So you choose, do you want to leap first and let everything else support that? Or do you want to get violently shoved? That's kind of what April isn't going to let you just sit in stagnation. Like, you're not going to get away with just sitting around in a poopy diaper. No, you must move. You must move. You must go forward, make it to the next step. So this is where the idea of pushing yourself is really going to come in handy. And what I mean when I'm saying push yourself is not ignore the authentic guidance that something isn't right for you or something isn't good for you. So this is where there is going to require some discernment on your part. There's a difference between avoiding something from that contracted space and something being a genuine no. Only you can actually tell what's what. Avoiding something out of contraction means that you know this thing that you desire is aligned with this action or with this thought form or with this perspective or with this daily practice that you have. All of the goods are congruent and consistent with this next move. Okay? And there might be some contraction around allowing yourself to fully have that. That's where you want to catch yourself with the avoidance. That's where you want to be careful and be discerning. Don't allow yourself to just cave to the contraction, right? You can feel it for a second, but don't just take the bait, is the point. Now, something being a genuine no means that in your heart of hearts, when you're consulting your soul or you're consulting God, it is a genuine disinterest. This doesn't feel good to me. This doesn't feel right to me. I genuinely am feeling a no. Not I'm scared and it seems like a big move. That's different. April is a very crucial month for you to make big moves now that result in big rewards later. So I don't actually think very many of you are going to see big payouts in April. Okay, so that was definitely a ping that I just got is no, you are going to have to play a longer game in April because a lot of what you're sculpting out now becomes the fruit that you pick later. Right? And so if you're contracting in April, then you're not going to get very much big juicy payouts later on, because they take some time to catch up, to come to fruition. There is a lag in between what you're doing in April and what happens later. So you want to consider, what am I doing now? What is the payout going to be later from taking this action or doing this thing or investing in this blah, 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 right? Or starting this daily practice or making this decision or putting myself out there in this way or applying to this job that I'm nervous I'm not qualified for. However it's showing up for you, the risks are rewarded whether or not you see the payout in April. So you don't want to get wrapped up in too much condition in April. Ideally, we never want to be wrapped up in the conditions in order to stay harmonious with our energetic state. Ideally, I know that that's not really the human way, but ideally we wouldn't want to get too wrapped up in conditions. So let's go back to, is it a no or is it contraction? I want to try to give you more of a realistic example so I can help you with the discernment process. Okay, let's stick to something really stereotypical. So let's say you are doing some sort of fitness training. So it doesn't matter what the intention is. Maybe it's cutting, maybe it's bulking, maybe you're trying to develop an athletic skill, whatever. But the point is, there might be an action that you know, if you take that action, it is going to lead to something great, something that you want. But maybe it's a little bit of an edge for you, right? Maybe it's new. Maybe it is a stretch. It is you feeling into something you've never done before. Do not become enchanted by the idea that discomfort is the indicator that something is going wrong. That's not quite accurate. It is in some ways, but not in the way that this is really going to stretch you, not in the way that April is pushing you. Because once again, you want to play the tape through a little bit further. So instead of saying, oh, that's going to stretch me, that might hurt a little bit, really consider, what is all of this adding up and leading to? Now, if you really want to access gold and treasures and jewels beyond your wildest dreams in April, if you can take pleasure in being stretched, now you're on a whole other planet, on a whole other level in April. But even that's a skill. So there's going to be somewhat of a, yes, meet yourself where you are. So you don't need to do something that is so astronomical and so huge that it really knocks you out of whack. Okay, so you don't want to be doing something that is going to really destabilize you. And you do want to experience greater sensation. That is what I'll say. Greater sensation in April. Because keep in mind, I am not here to judge what the sensation is. Is it adrenaline? Is it exhilaration? Is it excitement? Is it uncertainty? None of those things are necessarily bad. But what happens is you interpret the nervousness as bad. That's not the same thing as a genuine no. A no, in my in my body, no's feel very flat. This is or disinterested. So it's either disgust or flat feeling. So you can also play with those tones in April. Is what is this really? Or this next move that I want to make, is it that, no, I'm not into that. It's just not, I'm not feeling it. Or is it more on the side of what you might interpret as anxiety? Is it anxiety? Is it actually, I'm worried about this, I'm in fear, I'm in terror? Or is it, again, that exhilaration, excitement? So you want to have a very discerning lens on in April. This is really, really key for moving through this month. What is it really? Am I actually uncomfortable with this? Or does it excite me? Is it actually a no? Or am I avoiding this contraction piece? So you want to be able to interpret the tone of what you're feeling in your body and in your emotions properly in order to decide what happens next. Because some things are easy. Some things feel like a hell yes. And it's just easy to flow with it. And then there are other things that you really want. You really, really, really want, but it is bringing up some, I need to catch my breath. Like I want it, but I'm nervous. I want it, but I'm afraid of being judged. I want it, but I want it, but I want it, but. Those types of dilemmas, you need to lean into the I want it more. A true no will just be, I don't want it. But if we go back to this example of you either want to develop a skill or you're trying to get in some type of physical condition or you're training for a competition or something like that, you want to do that. You want to do those things. You want to build those skills. You want to access that part of your physical composition or your physical being or your physical abilities, right? And so the true yes is in the desire. Then there might be steps that exist around you that perhaps there's a little bit of contraction, but you know that when you lean into them, on the other side is the goods. The part that I think is going to be the most confusing is just the discernment. What is true for me? What's really going on here? What do I actually want? Is this contraction or is this a no? That is the key thing for many of you that you're going to be holding in your space, just being able to figure out what's what in the month of April. So another visual is coming through for April, and it's definitely not a perfect analogy, but the best way I can describe it is a lot of moves are being made in April. Again, if you're taking full advantage of this month, you are going to be making a lot of big moves, period. There's things in motion. You're taking steps forward. Things are happening in April, but the analogy that came through was that this has more to do with arranging your chessboard. So you're setting up the pieces. You're getting things ready. This is preparation isn't the right word because moves are being made, right? But you're positioning yourself in a way that is going to have lasting effects for who knows how long. So really consider that. This month, big moves are happening with the potential for big rewards because all of the things that are happening in April have an effect that come later. So if you are intentional with the energy and tapping into the want more than the action, that will clarify what is true in terms of what is the right next steps in terms of action or move or decision. Desire is the clarifier that is going to illuminate what comes next for you in April. So the key thing, move your pieces around this month. Move your pieces around because Stagnation is not going to feel good in April, and you are going to feel it. It is going to create that restlessness. It is going to create like deeper confusion. And so movement and experience is going to be clarifying for you in April. That's the other thing, is like, try it. For some of you, that might just be experimentation. Maybe you're doing something that you haven't done, and maybe it does take actually moving the piece to say, you know what, never mind, I've changed my mind. That's the other thing. When we're talking about making moves in April, a lot of the time, these moves are not going to be, it's not like signing a bunch of contracts in April, right? It's not like you're going to have all of these opportunities where you can't go backwards. There might be some things like buying houses and, you know, signing up for something, or bigger, more grandiose moves that you can't necessarily just back out of right away. But a lot of the things that you're doing on the day-to-day basis, the daily maintenance of the energy of April, is going to be stuff that is very flexible and very fluid. So you don't need to put a whole bunch of pressure on yourself either. You can dabble, you can experiment, you can sleep on it, you can feel it out. You can do all of that stuff too. And for those of you who are just really feeling this current, you're going to be able to go really, really, really fast. And that's the potential of April. April has the potential to just be a month of rapid growth, rapid evolution, things moving very, very quickly. I feel in my current practice that my life has the ability to, or the potential to, change in the most amazing way possible every day. So think about that for yourself. Really contemplate that. How fast things can change, how fast things can move. I had that experience in January of this year. And so really consider that for yourself in April, is things move fast. They really, really can. And it happens all the time. And that's why you don't want to play small in April. You want big stuff, but you play small. Where's the discrepancy? That's obviously incongruent. I want big things, but I will not move. I want big things. I want big change. I want big improvement, but I refuse to double down on my energetics. Right? So congruency is required in order for you to see the type of big movement that you want to see in April. But a lot of this is also going to be found in the day-to-day experience. Like with the training example. Again, tap into, what do you actually want here? What do you actually desire here? And then what is most lined up? What is most congruent with where you are now relative to where you want to be? Because every decision that you're making is bridging the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Or not, but I'm not in agreement for you to take that route. Right? I want you to move fast. I want you to grow fast. Oh, this is the other piece. This is the other piece that was so interesting that came to me the other night. There have been so many decisions that I've seen people make and that I have made myself. And at the time, it seemed so scary. It seemed like, oh my God, is this a bad idea? Maybe I shouldn't do this. Am I making a mistake? Right? Those are a lot of the things that get kicked up as you're expanding. And then you do it, and then it's no big deal. It's like you move into the place with the higher rent, and then all of a sudden, the money is just syncing up with the amount of rent that you have to pay. You know, or you upgrade something in your life and then things are just naturally flowing to continually support that. I rarely It doesn't mean it doesn't exist, because there is an energetic pattern that people can hold where this does exist. But when people are consciously working on the energetic side of this, the moves that they make, the upgrades that they access, the big moves that they're making don't blow up in their face. They just don't. They don't go into foreclosure and have to sell the boat. That's not something that happens for making big moves when you are energetically congruent with your desires. When you are making decisions from a soul level, that is not what happens. Your soul is not going to lead you into some dark paths. The way that we go down dark paths is when we're making moves from a misaligned state, particularly when you're making big moves from a misaligned state. That's what trips people up. But any time that I've seen someone tap into an upgrade or make a big shift or get into, a relationship in a really bold way or whatever the case may be, it's never been a quote unquote wrong move. And it has never led to anything that you would perceive as being catastrophic, even if the thoughts and fears were kicked up in the beginning. And so that is the other piece to really contemplate here. Is the thing that you want, if you were to actually go for it in April, if you made the move, would it actually blow up in your face the way that you often create a telenovela about in your mind? And for me, time and time again, I see that is not actually the way that people trend. Usually, when you make the move and when it feels right and when it feels good and your energy is behind it and your being is behind it, everything supports the continuation of it or the evolution to bigger and better things beyond it. So really consider that, and perhaps over the coming weeks, you can make some type of reminder list of moves that you've made that felt really big and that you were really nervous about, but that ended up being no big deal and that went really well and where everything turned out okay. And you actually made it through, where things turned out even better than you could ever imagine. And really allow yourself to dip into the data of all of this. Because that's what all of this is anyway. It's just reminding yourself of all of the good data that you have. And hopefully, if you're doing that practice, it'll start to shrink any fears or nerves that you might have around April, whatever comes up in April. So, in summary, let me wrap this up. Move. You want to opt for the Class 4 rapids instead of stagnant, mosquito-infested water. That's number one. So don't be afraid of just letting yourself go big, play bigger, play full out. Let yourself go there. Let yourself do the things that expand you. Let yourself just shift into that. Go for it. April is begging you to go for it. And you don't want to be shoved unexpectedly to where you want to go anyway. You want to dive in consciously and intentionally and in a way that feels good to you. So allow yourself to go for it. Number 2, make sure that you are discerning, is this a true no or is this contraction? Am I avoiding something that I know is good for me or that I truly do want for myself? Or am I avoiding this really delicious result because I'm misinterpreting the sensation that's happening in my body? Okay. No's often feel flat or blasé or disinterested or, right, obviously sometimes they feel bad, like genuinely bad, like terrible. But most of the time it's just that no, that flat, boring, blasé, disinterested. That's more so a no frequency. Whereas a yes can be a combination of things like anxiety, uncertainty, whatever this is that I'm doing with my hand, that energy, whatever that is that's coming up in your body. So allow yourself to just interpret things, start to feel into the sensation and remind yourself of what you actually want. Let the moves that you make line up with what you actually want. And the next thing that I want to summarize here is set yourself up in April. You're not preparing, you're making actual moves, but understand that there's going to be big influence that April has in the coming months and potentially year, depending on how big you're playing. Right? Everything is going to have a ripple effect, but you're really setting up your chessboard in April. So set yourself up for success. Consider the future in April. Consider, what am I doing now? And really, how is that going to play out for me if I do this or if I don't do this? Start to play into that highly contrasting focus in order to reorient yourself towards, okay, what is this calling me to in the moment? And then whether it be an energetic shift, a mental shift, a perspective shift, or a physical shift that you're making, on whatever dimension that exists for you, allow yourself to move with it. Anything else that I want to remind you of? That feels complete in this moment. So don't forget, new masterclass coming up. Get on my newsletter. Keep your eyes peeled. Check it out. If you follow me on Instagram, the branding is coming out very, very soon. And of course, if you want Apex, if you really, really are serious about a life-changing, epic, transformational container, this is the way to go. We carve you out of stone. We rebuild your foundation. We sweep everything out and we rebuild and refuel you in a completely new way. It is my favorite program to run, period. It is my favorite. It is highly, highly intensive and it is wildly impactful. Guaranteed. There is no way that you do not come out on the other side of Apex completely transformed. There's just no way. So if that feels like a hell yes to you, then you can go check out the link in the description box and applications are open. There are limited seats. So get in. We start on May 1st. I love you all so much. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I appreciate you all. And if this resonated, then make sure you send it to a friend, send it to someone who would resonate with this as well, or just give it a like, give it a thumbs up, all that good stuff. Thank you so much. And I will talk to you next time. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.